My life flows on in endless song, above earth lamentations. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Thank you, Michael. And we bring ourselves into this space with the ringing of our church bell. We have Julia Galogli up there today to sound it for us.
Welcome to our beloved sanctuary, as well as our digital sanctuary on Zoom. I'm Robin Holgrove, and my family and I have been coming to Theodore Parker Church for over 20 years now. I've served in a variety of capacities, and I'm just rejoined the Music and Worship Committee. Many thanks to Mary Beth Noonan, who is our camera point person today, and to Tom Cardell, who is our Zoom usher. Those of you who are here in person, we ask that you keep your masks on at all times while indoors. The worship leaders may take off their masks at the mic when distanced from others, depending upon their comfort level. As we begin our service today, we acknowledge that our church was built on the ancestral, unceded land of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the devastating legacy of settler colonialism and the continuing harm done to indigenous groups in our community and beyond. May our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion call us to take meaningful, restorative action to honor and protect the land of all her people. We come together to recognize and celebrate the gift of lives for ourselves and for all the creatures with whom we share this planet, for the miracle of every breath, with wonder in our joys and compassion in our sorrows. We invite all of you to bring your perspectives, your beliefs and doubts, all that is unique and wondrous about you to our service. In the spirit of love, all are welcome here. If you're new to Theodore Parker Church or are visiting today, we'd love to stay in touch. You're invited to fill out a connection card, which will give you an opportunity to sign up for our weekly updates and help us welcome you. A link to the connection card will be in the chat, as well as our contact information. Those joining us here in the sanctuary are encouraged to fill out the contact card you'll find in your pews within the bright yellow pamphlet. We'd like to offer a moment for those joining us remotely to greet us who are joining us in person. So, AV folks, could you please put our sanctuary screen on gallery view so we can see our offsite congregation? Folks joining us on Zoom, we can see you in the sanctuary, so give us a wave if you'd like. And folks in the sanctuary, the camera is actually behind you, just below the clock. Folks in the sanctuary, let's give a big wave and hello to the folks joining us remotely. Wonderful. It's good to be together. We hope each of you will find some comfort to carry with you over the week and some challenge for your thoughts. As always, we wish for each of you health, well-being, and a sense of peace. Our pianist is not here today, so we have our guest musician, our West Roxbury neighbor, Hayward Wider.
Yes, sorry, I should have given you that.
Hayward studied cello performance at Berklee College of Music, and they are a member of the Sanctuary Boston House Band. Hayward will be performing with Reverend Joe and a few other musician friends here at TPC on October 29th for a Halloween concert. We are grateful to have them join us here this morning, and they ease us into worship with some improvisation on cello.
Thank you, Tayward. So great to have you with us this morning. Beloveds, this has been a hard week in the life of this congregation. It was my sad duty to tell you that longtime Theodore Parker church member Diana Diggs had passed away. Diana had been living with pancreatic cancer for a while, and after recuperating from a stroke this summer, she experienced a very rapid decline in her health just last week. She was only on hospice care for a few days before she passed, but she was surrounded that entire time with her close family. Diana was deeply beloved by this congregation, and I know that many of you have had long, rich relationships with her over the years. We'll have some time following the service for those who wish to share some memories of her to gather in the parish hall. All are welcome to come and share stories. We'll actually kind of be in the parlor, the smaller room, so that we can be near each other and hear well All are welcome to come and share stories or memories or just listen and be together. Last fall, I visited Diana in her Jamaica Plain apartment just a few blocks from mine, and she was so hospitable and honestly hilarious. As she handed me a cup of tea, she said, "I feel like a character in some British historical drama. What an occasion to have the vicar over for tea." It's my first time being called a vicar. It was great. You know, I had gone to visit her after she'd had a surgery, but she didn't really want to talk about her illness. "I'm sick," she said, "but I feel a sense of well-being, as strange as that might be." And she attributed it to that, she attributed that well-being to this congregation. The overwhelming love you sent her way with cards and meals was a profoundly spiritual experience for her of receiving unconditional love. Rather than devote more of her attention to her illness, she wanted to talk with me about her theology of love, about bell Hook's writings, and about the activism she was so passionate about environmental activism and especially justice in the Middle East and Palestinian rights, which were causes near and dear to her heart. I know she was a champion for those causes within this congregation and throughout the greater Boston area. Our worship theme for the month of October is courage. And we had already planned to have today's service be about faithful risking, about taking courageous actions for the causes and values that you believe in. And when the staff and I talked about this Sunday service after the news of Diana's passing, we were grateful for the serendipity of it. Diana was a wonderful model of living courageously and of taking faithful risks to advocate for what she believed in. So we're keeping today's service theme and dedicating it to Diana's memory. Whether or not you knew Diana, I'm guessing that each of us have people in our lives that we can look to as examples of living courageously and faithfully. Let us call those people's spirits into our midst today as we light our chalice with these words from Unitarian Universalist minister Greg Ward. If we are lucky, we all get a chance during our lifetime to know someone who becomes for us an exemplar of living. And if we are really lucky, we will recognize how they ended up passing on some of their goodness to us, if we're lucky. But one thing is certain. No one, not one of us, entering this world can escape the cost of living. The price we pay is this: to live in this world, we must accept that someday we will die. To love what is alive, we must accept having to lose what we've made precious through our care. To be fully and fiercely human, we must accept having to be breakable and sometimes broken. When we stop to notice how their life gave us a path and a little light to see by, it helps encourage us to help carry that light forward. Though each of us carries forth in this world a small flame, we know that the ability of that light to brighten the world depends upon the many others who learn to travel with it in their hearts. We light this chalice today to honor the life and living of a truly bright light, Diana Diggs. With that in our hearts, let's sing together one of those beloved hymns, Spirit of Life, that has become the most often sung hymn across Unitarian Universalist communities. If you want to follow along with sheet music, it's number 123 in your gray hymnals. Spirit of Life has a beautiful origin story. In 1981, Carolyn McDade was coming home from a church social justice meeting, and she remembers feeling totally burnt out, like, quote, a piece of dried cardboard that has lain in the attic for years. Just open wide the door, she said, and I'll be dust. A friend, though, sat with her in her despair, and eventually, Carolyn made her way over to her piano. As she walked through the house, she found her piano, and that was her prayer, "May I not drop out." It wasn't written so much as prayed into being. She knew more than anything that she wanted to continue in faith with the movement. As we sing today, may we feel rooted and nourished by our faith and invoke a sense of freedom, possibility, and courage. I invite you to raise your voices, raise your body, raise your spirit in song as we sing together, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Let's sing it one more time. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
You may be seated. I invite up our Lifespan religious educator, Rose Gologli, to share with us a story this morning.
Good morning. It is good to be with you all this morning. So in a moment, welcome, especially to the children of this congregation. We'll be joining together for Children's Chapel in just a moment, but first I have a story for you all. As we enter this morning's theme of faithful risking, I have a story about doing hard things. This is a book by Gabby Garcia. It's called I Can Do Hard Things, and it's a book of mindful affirmations. So before I read it, I just want to talk a little bit about what are mindful affirmations. How might we receive this book fully? So as the book defines, to be mindful is to be aware of what's happening right now. And an affirmation is a short phrase or statement about yourself that is supportive, helpful, or motivating in some way. So mindful affirmations connect you with what you need to hear. So as I read the book, I invite you to take a few deep breaths. If you hear an affirmation that resonates with you, try holding it inside, repeating it silently inside of yourself. Pay attention to how your body feels as you hear the affirmation. Notice how saying it back to yourself makes you feel. Because what you say to yourself matters. Mindful affirmations become your inner voice, which supports you in doing hard things, whatever that might be for you. So here is we can do hard things. Oh, sorry, can the host enable screen sharing?
Oh, yes.
Let's check this one.
You should be, one moment. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can do hard things. I don't always feel brave, confident, or strong. Sometimes it's easier to follow others along. I get so many messages about how I should be pulled in different directions. I feel wobbly. When this happens, I listen for that quiet voice inside. When I pay attention, that voice is my guide. I connect with the love and strength it brings. It helps me remember I can do hard things. I can be a friend to myself. I can feel all my feelings. I can ask for help. I can try again rather than give up. I can believe in myself. I can speak up when it would be easier to stay quiet. I can say no, even to my friends. I can apologize, and I can forgive. I can listen to understand different points of view. I can care for my community. I can choose kindness. I can practice peace. I can share my gifts with the world. I can be myself. Hard things can be about what we think, feel, say, or do. What's hard for me may not be hard for you. You are you, and I am me. We walk through the world differently. Trusting my voice helps me find my way. I grow braver and stronger every day. The tough stuff I face is all my own. But I can also remember I'm not alone. I'm ready for the hard things I have to do. And please remember, so are you. Thank you all. Well, as I invite Michael to lead us in our children's benediction for You Shall Go Out, I'll join the kids over by the door so we can go to Children's Chapel and learn about the second of our 5 jagged rocks of Unitarian Universalism. This morning, we're going to learn about possibility. What is it to be open to possibility and to learning and growing together? Thank you.
Have fun.
For you shall go out in joy, for you shall go out in joy, and come back in peace, and come back in peace. Blessed be.
Thank you. I invite us into our centering hymn, which is a song that I have used as an affirmation to myself many times when I need to summon courage. I know this rose will open. It's number 396 in your gray hymnals. I know this rose will open was written by UU minister Mary Gregolia. And she wrote it when she was in seminary and was given the assignment to write a eulogy for herself. The good words she'd like to remain behind about her life. For her, this song came as an answer to an invitation to her deepest self, to allow herself to be open to change, to let go of the need to control in the face of uncertainty. So I invite you to join in singing. I invite you to rise in body, spirit, or voice as we sing. I know this rose will open.
And let's do it one time through unison, and then if Reverend Joe, if you would lead group one, and I'll lead group two.
Yeah,
And we'll do it 3 times as a round.
great.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. Group one.
I know this rose will open.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know thy fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know my rose will open.
Take a deep breath and have a seat on the exhale. I invite you to join me in a time of meditation and prayer, first in words, then in about a minute of silence, and then in a musical meditation. Our words this morning are a prayer from Reverend Tamara Lebach. Holy One who has given us the breath of life, today we remember to breathe deeply, to rest, to take in, to pause before we act, and then to take in another deep breath, poised on the edge, and risk jumping in. Risk taking action, risk speaking up, risk using the gifts that we have been given so that at the end of our life we can say with absolute clarity that no part of our existence was wasted in fear of failure or fear of success. Hold us. Prepare us the way to begin to offer the gift of our awakened presence, full of love and light today. These and the prayers of our hearts we lift up now in the silence.
Generosity is a spiritual practice in our Unitarian Universalist congregation. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remind ourselves that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Links to donate will be in the chat, or you can take a meditative moment writing out a check and sending it to the church after the service. Ushers will be coming around the sanctuary to collect an offering from those in the pews who wish to donate something more tangible. As the choir sings Landslide by Stevie Nicks, an offering to sustain this congregation of money and hope will be gratefully received. Thank you.
Take this love and take it down. If you climb a mountain and you turn around, if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, well, the landslide brought you down. And you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, well, maybe
The reading is Courage Is by David Breeden. We gather together here now, summoning our courage to be. We gather bringing our weariness and our energy. We gather bringing our wariness and our visions. Like trees in rocky places or roots clutch. What we find is each other. What we find is each other, holding tightly. Courage is not certitude. Courage is not assurance. Courage is the willingness to join in the attempt, to join in the unlikely, even the impossible. Courage is a choice. Courage is a way of knowing. Courage is a way of joining together. Courage is knowing that together we will do what none of us could do alone.
Thank you, Robin. The first time that I remember meeting this congregation's former minister, Reverend Ann Bancroft, was at a West Roxbury pipeline protest, I think in 2016. It was my first, I know many of you were there, yeah. Well, so here it is. It was my first time at the natural gas pipeline protest, and I was there to help some friends with song leading. I remember being introduced to Reverend Ann, to Mary Boyle, who's joining us on Zoom right now, who stood out at that spot every day for how long, Mary? How many months? Years? Shout it out if somebody knows the answer. It was a long time. And I know there were other of you there that day and many others. This wasn't yet the particular protest where several folks got arrested, but I was really impressed. When I heard Reverend Ann give a rousing speech, I remember thinking, wow, okay, this is a congregation that shows up for the justice issues in its own backyard. This is a church that is willing to take risks for what it believes in. This August, the Standing Committee, the governing board of Theodore Parker Church, met for a retreat to start out the church year. They spent one of the evenings discussing an essay from the New England region of the Unitarian Universalist Association called The Practices of Spiritual Leadership. This essay started from the premise that all church work can be approached as opportunities for spiritual growth, community building, and mission fulfillment. I was struck by one of the practices of leadership that they called faithful risking. I love this phrase as it conjures both whole congregations taking actions together to live out our values, as well as individual acts of courage. Our faith, the authors say, calls us out of comfort and out of maintenance into conscious, intentional experiments to fully live into our mission and purpose. Our Unitarian Universalist theology is grounded in an understanding that change is constant and that revelation is not sealed but ongoing. We are theologically called, then, to keep opening ourselves to new and deeper understandings of the world and our place in it. To keep asking, what are we called to right now? We can look also to the second source of Unitarian Universalism, that we draw inspiration from words and deeds of prophetic people which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Faithful risking, then, invites us to look at our values, both individually and as a congregation, and discern what actions we are called to take. Faithful risking invites us to responsibly experiment, to reflect and then try again, releasing our hopes of being perfect, of doing it just right, we're not called to be perfect. We are called to be faithful and courageous. When I am called to courageous and instead am mostly feeling fear, I look to those whose courage inspires me. I ask my ministerial colleagues if they would share stories of times that their congregations took a faithful risk. And I was really moved by this story from our congregation in Tacoma, Washington. Toward the beginning of the pandemic, the Tacoma UU congregation asked themselves how they could use the resources that they had to live out their mission, particularly how they might welcome all with love and compassion and engage their wider community in working for justice. But they were also faced with a challenge. Over many years, the congregation had experienced their churchyard being trashed. It had been used for toileting, trash dumping, and other activities that negatively impacted their space. And this activity only increased once they stopped meeting in the building in March 2020, despite additional security cameras. They considered fencing off the grounds, but the Social Justice Committee pointed out that fencing off the church would not reflect their principles or their statement that they were a welcoming congregation. Not to mention that fencing off even a small portion of the grounds would cost like $15,000. The congregation learned about a pilot program in their city of Tacoma designed to support individuals experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. The Safe Parking program has people who are living in their vehicles become temporary guests of an organization that has a parking lot. The congregation did some exploratory work and some real discernment. And they realized that offering safe parking could be a way to meet everyone's needs. Not only does safe parking reflect their values of supporting those experiencing homelessness, but it ended up making the parking lot and church grounds safer just through their guests' presence on the site and their investment in having a safe place to park and to sleep. They were looking out for their own space. The organization, in this case the church, would provide an assigned parking place and access to basic sanitation, things like a toilet and porta potty, hand washing stations, trash receptacles, things like that, and a secure place to park. Volunteers from the congregation had been involved for months, supporting the project now, and it's made a difference not only to those who now have a safe place to sleep, but a big impact on the congregation itself. This is a congregation showing up for justice work, literally in their own yard. This is being faithful and courageous. I'm reminded of one of my favorite stories from Father Greg Boyle's book, Tattoos on the Heart: The Power of Boundless Compassion. One morning, during his days as the pastor of Dolores Mission Church in Los Angeles, he began his homily with a most unusual question. What does the church smell like? When his parishioners avoided eye contact, looking everywhere but at him, the priest asked again, "Come on now, what's the church smell like?" An old man who didn't care what people thought yelled out honestly in Spanish, "Huele a patas." It smells like feet. You see, Dolores Mission Church had declared itself a sanctuary church for the undocumented after passage of the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. Recently arrived undocumented men from Mexico and Central America would sleep in the church at night. Each morning, Father Boyle says, a certain scent lingered in the church, never overwhelming but undeniably there. Vacuums and liberally sprinkled carpet cleaners didn't quite do the trick. Neither did strategically placed potpourri and air wicks. As up to 100 men took haven in the church at night, the distinct odor of smelly feet remained in the air the next morning. Parishioners began to grumble. Instead of lecturing his congregants about getting their priorities in order, or instead of reminding them of the church's mission to side with those on the margins, Father Boyle helped his parishioners do something harder, but much more effective. He helped them reflect and recommit to courage. Here's how, in an excerpt from his book. After that congregant called out that it smelled like feet, Father Boyle replied, "Excellent, but why does it smell like feet?" A woman says, "'Cause many homeless men slept here last night?" "Well," Father Boyle responds, "why do we let that happen here?" Another congregant calls out, "Es nuestro compromiso." It's what we've committed to. The priest asks, "Well, why would anyone commit to that?" A congregant responds, "Porque es lo haría Jesús." This is what Jesus would do. Well then, Father Boyle says, what does the church smell like now? A man stands up and bellows, "Huele a nuestro compromiso." It smells like our commitment. The place cheers. A woman waves her arms wildly, "Huele a rosas." It smells like roses. The packed church roars with laughter and a newfound kinship that embraced someone else's odor as their own emerged. Father Boyle writes, "The stink in the church hadn't changed, only how the folks saw it." The people at Dolores Mission had come to embody the poet Wendell Berry's simple injunction: you have to be able to imagine lives that are not your own. When discerning what they were called to, this church understood themselves called to compassion, as their sacred texts instructed them. Here's Father Boyle again, writing, "Compassion isn't just about feeling the pain of others. It's about bringing them in toward yourself. If we love what God loves, then in compassion, margins get erased." The biblical teaching, "Be compassionate as God is compassionate," means the dismantling of barriers that exclude. Here, too, is faithful risking. Here, too, is the courage to live on purpose in alignment with one's deepest held values. Two more stories for you. These ones of individual acts of courage, of faithful risking. In his book called On the Res, Ian Fraser tells a story about South Dakota's Pine Ridge Reservation. In the fall of 1988, the Pine Ridge girls basketball team played an away game in another town in South Dakota. It was one of those times when the host gym was dense with anti-Indian hostility. Home team fans waved food stamps, yelling fake Native war cries and epithets like squaw and gut eater. Usually the Pine Ridge girls made their entrances according to height, led by the tallest seniors. When they hesitated to face the hostile crowd, a 14-year-old girl named Sue Ann, a freshman, offered to go first. She surprised her teammates and silenced the crowd by performing the Lakota shawl dance and then singing in Lakota, graceful and modest and show-offy all at once, in Fraser's words. She managed to reverse the crowd's hostility until they even cheered and applauded. Of course, Pine Ridge went on to win the basketball game. Here is discernment, seeing the moment and situation clearly, and then courageously doing what is yours to do. Finally, Unitarian Universalist minister Victoria Safford tells another story of daring and of the meeting of our passion and the world's great hunger for justice. In her essay called "The Small Work in the Great Work," she writes, 50 years ago, to march in the streets of a city as a gay man or lesbian openly must have taken wild courage, incredible courage, outrageous imagination. Those who were there will tell us, well, courage, yes, but there was more. They will tell us that once you have glimpsed the world as it might be, as it ought to be, as it's going to be, however that vision appears to you, it's impossible to live compliant and complacent anymore in the world as it is. Reverend Safford continues, to march was a dangerous risk, but not to was a risk of another kind, of living half dead with no name, unremembered, surviving on scraps and crumbs and the outright threats and pious ultimatums of the hate-filled present moment. Why not risk all that and go out into the sun in summertime and travel around in the world as it ought to be, thereby bringing it to bear? Why not march and carry on and act out and act up as if your life depended on it? Bishop John Shelby Spong calls it solar ethics, to commit to living as the very sun itself lives. That is, to do what you were created to do, to shine and shine and shine without regard for recognition or permanence or reward, to love and simply be for the sake of loving and living and being. And so, Safford continues, you come out and you march the way a flower comes out and blooms because it has no other calling. It has no other work. I have seen and you have seen, and maybe you have been among those who have had to march in terror on pain of dire consequences. People have marched with paper bags on their heads to guard their lives and their livelihoods. Teachers, police officers, neighbors, tenants, daycare providers, clergy. People took such risks, but still they were there, and they still are, and we are so grateful. To march, Safford concludes, was dangerous. It still is. It still is now, and all the more so, let there be no question. This is no time for quietism. Beloveds, you are a people who show up for justice. You are a people who are willing to take risks for what you believe in. Where is courage calling you next? I close with a beautiful poem called Map of the Journey in Progress, which is also written by Reverend Victoria Safford. I dedicate these words to each of you courageous souls and to the courageous ones who have gone before and shown us pathways forward. It's a little lengthy when read aloud, but honestly, there was nothing extraneous I could cut, so just soak it in. Safford writes, here is where I found my voice and chose to be brave. Here is a place where I forgave someone against my better judgment, and I survived that. And unexpectedly, amazingly, I became wiser. Here is where I was once forgiven, was ready for once in my life to receive forgiveness and to be transformed. And I survived that also. I lived to tell the tale. This is the place where I said no, more loudly than I'd ever thought I could, and everybody stared. But I said no loudly anyway, because I knew it must be said. And those staring settled down into harmless, ineffective grumbling, and over me, they had no power anymore. Here is a time, and here is another, when I laid down my fear and moved right on into it, right up to my neck in that roiling water. Here is where cruelty taught me something. And here's where I was first astonished by gratuitous compassion and knew it for the miracle it was, the requirement it is. It was a trembling time. And here, much later, is where I returned the blessing clumsily. It wasn't hard, but I was unaccustomed. It cycled round, and as best as I could, I sent it back on out, passed the gift along. This circular motion around and around has no apparent end. Here is a place, a murky puddle, where I have stumbled more than once and fallen. I don't know yet what to learn there. On this site, I was outraged, and the rage sustains me still. It clarifies my seeing. And here is where something caught me. A warm breeze in late winter, bird song in late summer. Here's where I was told that something was wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here is where I said, yes, I know, I walk in beauty. Here is where I began to look with my own eyes, and listen with my ears, and sing my own song, shaky as it is. Here is where, as if by surgeon's knife, my heart was opened up. And here, and here, and here. These are landmarks of courage. So may it be. Our closing hymn is all about those landmarks of courage, those people who light the way for us. Our closing hymn is in the Teal hymnals, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment. This hymn was written by Reverends Jason Shelton and Mary Catherine Morn for the celebration of First Unitarian Universalist Nashville's 50th anniversary in 2002. As we sing together, I invite you to rise in body, in spirit, or in voice as we sing together.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the glories of our living brings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, then our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. which commands a deeper justice, built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Thank you, Michael. You may have a seat. I want to extend a few invitations to you all to keep on participating in the life of this congregation beyond our Sunday morning services. Following our postlude, and thanks so much to Theodore for joining us this morning. It's an absolute delight to have you here. There's just nothing more soulful than the cello. It's just the best. Following the postlude, we'll have a time for some social connections. I'll have a breakout room or two for folks joining on Zoom to chat for about 20 minutes. And folks are welcome in person to head through these doors to the parish hall for coffee hour and connections, either up about 5 or 6 steps or around through the little parking area to have a step-free entrance. All are welcome. And at about noon, those who wish to join in a conversation, just kind of an open space for folks to share memories about Diana's impact on your life, we'll gather in the parlor. So I suspect some of you will make it over there before I will. So if a few of you would start setting up some chairs in a circle that we can bring in our snacks, our tea and coffee, and share some memories. We'll have about an hour for that. All are welcome. This coming Thursday, on the 6th of October from 2 to 4 p.m., weather permitting, is going to be a really lovely art project that folks have done in previous years. It's coming back, painting wrapping paper. I have been assured you don't need to think you have artistic talent to be a good participant in this. You just need to enjoy creating and being with others. So that'll be 2 to 4, weather permitting, otherwise the following week on Thursday in the churchyard. These are will end up being sold at our holiday fair as a fundraiser for the church. I know many of you have your own stock of this now from previous years, so if you need to stock back up, you can start thinking ahead. Finally, I invite up a member of our ministerial search committee, Dave Harrington, to give us one final announcement about the survey.
Thank you, Reverend Joe, and first of all, thank you to this wonderful congregation for the hard work you're doing with the search committee in joining us in filling out the survey and sending me lots of emails about your thoughts about the survey, etc. So we are at an important bend in the road right now. As Reverend Joe's slide said, the survey will close tonight at 10 o'clock. And tomorrow, you will get another one of those lovely tulip emails from the search committee that will announce the listening circles. The first listening circle will be held on the 16th of October, and the email will have a link for registering and learning the schedules. They're very different than the survey. In the listening circles, 10 or so people will be in conversation about their views and their aspirations of the church. Very different than the survey, which is done in the quiet of the internet at night. The survey. So 72 hours ago, I would have been standing here telling you that we were limping to the finish line at 10 o'clock tonight. If you've ever taught, never underestimate the tendency of a class to start their homework at the last minute. And we are the same. So we've had a wonderful surge of responses to the email that went out on Friday, reminding people about the survey. So what are the numbers? Little Prince in that lovely children's book says, grown-ups love numbers. What are the numbers? So we have about 110 active members, another 20 to 30 friends of the church who haven't signed the membership book but are very active. We have 75 responses on the survey right now. which is truly excellent. It's truly excellent. But I would like us to stretch. With 75 responses, there are probably 40 of you, the 50 who we have not heard from yet. Response rate is a funny thing. It doesn't mean everything that people says it does. What really matters in a small group like this is that we hear from as many people as possible so that we can use your responses to both help our choice of a minister and to shape the listening circles, to shape the questions for the listening circles. So if you have lost the link, the survey, here is the sanctuary view of the chat box, right? Here are the 2 emails that you can send mail to get the link. I left some in the back, and I think that Jennifer Bottomley is probably putting those 2 emails in the chat. If you think it would take you more than 30 seconds to find that email, don't do it. Send me mail, and I'll send you the link. Be happy to do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave, and to the other members of the search committee. I really commend the search committee on their commitment to being able to hear from as many voices in the congregation throughout this process so that you end up with a fabulous minister who really represents you all well. So thank you to you all and to you all. With that, I offer these closing words from Reverend Kendall Gibbons. There is, finally, only one thing required of us. That is, to take life whole, the sunlight and the shadows together, to live the life that is given us with courage and humor and truth. We have such a little moment out of the vastness of time for all our wondering and loving. Therefore, let there be no half-heartedness. Rather, let the soul be ardent in its pain, in its yearning, in its praise. Then shall peace enfold our days, and glory shall not fade from our lives. Go in peace. Amen.